My name is Craig Levin. I'm a business advisor, and the firm that I founded is 3D Consulting. We assist business owners and operators increase their cash flow and solve other business challenges through superior planning, analysis, and execution. This is my second video in a series of posts that I'll be making regularly on LinkedIn. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on the previous post. That included Donna, who I worked with for years on the Verizon Wireless headquarters finance team, Paul, who I met years ago when our oldest kids were in daycare together, Lance, who I've known all my life and who became my first client. He and his wife's company is called Keep Life Tasty, and their top product is Millie's Sipping Broth, which is available online in specialty food stores and now on the Home Shopping Network. Brian is another one who I met in the cannabis industry and is a good friend and client. Eddie, who I worked with for years at Verizon. Kayla, my middle daughter and one of the 3 Ds. Mark, who I've known since high school. He builds homes by day and DJs in Europe by night. And Debbie, who I've known all my life and is an organizational specialist who I hired to organize and improve my team at Verizon. Thanks everybody for your support. So a little bit more about me to follow on to the last session. I'm born and raised in Seattle, went to UW for undergrad and Seattle U for my master's degree. I'm a big-time Seattle sports fan, and you can probably tell from all of this that I love it here in the Northwest. So last time I talked about how we at 3D look at historic income statements to quickly get a sense of where a company exists in their life cycle and the overall health of the operation and the bottom line. Speaking of health, having a professional advisor examine your business when something feels like it's dragging is no different than seeing a doctor when something in your body feels off. You know something is dragging down the business, but you need to pinpoint it and address it. Like I mentioned in the last session, most business owners and operators unfortunately wait until they're faced with an urgent crisis before they reach out for an expert's help. And just like doctors do, business advisors hope that you come to us earlier when the symptoms first present themselves. So make sure you have an advisor on your team when running a business. The value of having someone in your corner who can be a sounding board for ideas and a fresh pair of eyes and ears on your day-to-day processes and problems is immense. There's an art and a science to examining a business, and although some folks might focus on gross margins at first, because ultimately you are in business to make a profit, and gross margin is a key way to look at profit, I tend to look at the top line first, or the revenue trend, to see where the company has been and where it's going. It would be nice and easy if your actual revenue trend looked like most budgets do. You know, a smooth, linear trend that graphs up and to the right. But for a multitude of reasons, that rarely happens. Let's look at a revenue trend right now. And my apologies for the low tech. I'll improve these tools over time as the sessions continue. So here is the visual. We have about 6 years of historic revenue. This is the tax revenue trend from the adult use cannabis industry in Washington state, and it's shown by month. I chose this to illustrate the distinct lifestyle phases of revenue that tell you important things about the entity that you're looking at. I also think new industries like this one, which emerged out of nowhere, are fascinating, and this will be one of the major instances of that happening in my lifetime. So there are 3 distinct phases of revenue trend that we can see here. The first is from 2014 to 2016, where the initial phase after legalization, cannabis sales grew linearly at about 100% year over year. So that's doubling every year. You don't see much seasonality in here because it's drowned out by that significant growth trend. During this time, there were many new stores opening, new suppliers emerging, and new consumers presenting themselves. There's a major inflection point at the beginning of 2017, which starts a leveling off stage. Growth is lower, and you can start to see some of the seasonality occurring where the shape of the monthly graph starts to repeat itself every 12 bars. And during this period, tons of competing brands were entering the market and pricing continued on a steady decline. So we happen to see a very, pretty flat trend where this was increasing maybe 10% year over year. Then in March 2020, the revenue shifted up dramatically, a step function where sales increased overnight by 20%. And this was really fascinating because when COVID stay-at-home orders were enacted and people received their stimulus checks, there was a huge spike in sales across the board, and people attribute that to the cannabis stores being deemed as essential. Plus, folks are doing less entertainment spending on bars and restaurants and movies, so part of their spending is shifting over to cannabis. So looking at this, how can we begin to understand if this company is healthy by just looking at this trend first? There are literally thousands of questions and comparisons that can emerge from this information to determine if the company is sustainable, is relevant, and the prospects for our business strategy to succeed. First, the trend was generally up and to the right. That's good. The growth trend flattened 3 years after inception. So what was the business focusing on during that time? Was it efficiency and productivity? That's good. Raising money to increase capacity? Probably good. Increasing capacity where there's demand is what you need to be doing. And raising money, there are good ways and bad ways to do that we'll talk more about in future sessions. Were you packing on management headcount? Probably bad in a flat market like that. So finally, when the step function occurred with COVID, did we get our share of the extra revenue opportunity? Well, let's say that the industry increased 20% and we increased 40%. That's good. If we increased 10%, that would be bad. So why did we over or under index that market? Do we have enough capacity? Are we changing as fast as the market is? How much demand is really out there? How do we get our fair share or our unfair share of that incremental revenue opportunity? You could also look at Colorado's historic trend because they legalized cannabis sales 2 years before Washington. So does that trend match Washington's trend? And what can it tell us about what to expect in Washington's 7th year? You could really go on peeling the layers of the onion by repeatedly asking the question, why? Why did we under-index competitors or the market? Because we didn't have inventory at the time. Why did we not have inventory when the opportunity arose? Well, because our machines were down. Why are our machines breaking down? So you could go on like this, and this will ultimately identify not only if your company is approaching the market successfully, but it will also uncover all types of operating and staffing and process issues which may need to be fixed. This has the potential of fundamentally changing your processes, your management structure, your tax strategy, or your value proposition. And you're contemplating all these decisions based on real analytical data. So I hope this approach to assessing a business from the top line revenue trend has been helpful and informative. The next episode will contain the key elements to building a revenue plan and different ways to view the actuals and variance to that plan. I'd love your feedback and suggestions. Please enter them in the comments. Thanks.